Hey YouTubers, Rob here with another Commodore 64 game. This time we're taking a look at Falcon Patrol II. If you remember, I took a look at the original game fairly early on in this little series, so I decided to finally check out the sequel, which was released a year later, so in 1984. The big difference is, rather than fighting aircraft, you're fighting these helicopters. Decided to sort of bring it in right from the attract mode. So the gameplay still plays fairly similar, side to side, free roaming shooter. This time you're battling these helicopters, but still the same sort of mission, fight them all down. Compared to just fighting waves of planes. So the big change are the way these enemies work. Is you've got these three distinct types that you can see: the solo, the transport, and the gunship. And the transport in particular, as the briefing's pointing out, actually can lower equipment. So it's got these flak cannons as well as the countermeasures. Just playing it before, I didn't quite get far enough to see the countermeasure systems, but the flak does add quite a bit of challenge. So I think we'll just let the briefing finish up. Just a bit of a refresher for myself as well before we dive in. So quite a little bit of interest, just in terms of sort of this briefing setup compared to a lot of other games from the period. So yeah, one thing I like is compared to the original game where you just fought planes continuously, now there are actual distinct waves, and there's actually some changes to the UI in game that show this. So I think we'll dive in. So you can, pardon me. So you can sort of see the setup resembles the original game. Except for the lower right where you can see status bar fueling. Now you've got your fuel meter, your level, your missile count, and that HC indicator, which is the number of helicopters you have to destroy. Controls are still the same, joystick import 1. And fires a missile, but also if you hit down and fire, you'll fire a missile 45 degrees below. And that's really intended for taking out any of the targets that the transports drop. Something that is a little annoying now I've just died is I have to see this refuel sequence again. It's a bit frustrating, especially if you're not quite really, pardon me, to get really skilled on that first stage. On later levels, you actually start already fueled up. I wish that the sequence was only shown just for starting. But yeah, it's nice to have the counter of how many how many helicopters you have left in the wave. And in fact, I actually like them as enemies over the various aircraft in the original Falcon Patrol because they're a little easier to target, slower. Now that's something that you can actually damage your landing pads now, and it's actually possible for those landing pads to be destroyed in full. Can't remember if off the top of my head if that actually was proper consequences. Ooh. Alright, so now we've completed wave 1. The difference is now is that they'll actually start being a little more aggressive. I noticed that it wasn't until this levels when they first started the transport started deploying. And we've just seen we've seen a transport deploy a flak pod. And we've also seen the other helicopters actively engage. So it sort of shows that despite being the simplistic shooter that this is, there's actually a little more to it than the first game. Ooh, that was nice. Managed to take out that helicopter before it dropped the pod. Now, I'm going to have to refuel, so... So you can see, where the pad is damaged, you can still land and refuel. Oh! Oh, okay. But you see, now we're on level 2, it actually shows it's already fueled up, so we don't have to fight around like we did. We didn't have to wait around like we did in the first game, which... It just saves those precious seconds. And I can't remember, I have to double check, but I can't remember in the first game if you actually had a death sequence, you just blew up. So there's just that other little detail sort of like makes your death have a bit of a consequence. So I actually I actually kind of like this game a lot more than the first game, just because it feels a lot more polished and a little more complete. Ah, come on. Yeah, wave 3. I feel it's a lot more complete compared to the original Falcon Patrol now, just because of for all the way all these extra details all add up. It still feels relatively challenging. But probably not as dramatic as compared to the original game. Is he going to go and drop something? Yes, he's going to drop. He's dropped a flak pot. Okay. His transport choppers can certainly be painful to take out. But we've got it. Alright. Then I'll go refuel before I get into this wave. So, but in terms of graphics, again, there's not much to say here. Like, there's some I like the graphics of the background ground scenery. The sprites themselves are still fairly simple. Like, it's keeping to just sort of basic single color sprites here. Yeah, the only time I've seen a multicolor sprite is for those explosions. Sound again, fairly basic title tunes, not. But again, this is a release from 1984, and the C64 was only a couple of years old, so I think that can be forgiven. Controls feel good. There is a bit of weight to your aircraft. Which adds, I think, it adds. You don't, that weight gives it some challenge in terms of maneuverability. You can't just turn on a. Damn it. That again died with the last enemy on the level. So a lot of little things that there are still the same little things that were frustrations in the original Falcon Patrol are still here. But I think the gameplay's just been improved enough over that to make this a much more enjoyable experience. Oh! This is the furthest I've ever gotten, actually. And it plays a little jingle and you get an extra life. I said if you remember from my video of the first Falcon Patrol, I was utterly terrible at it. And it looks like, along with that extra life, they've repaired all my bases. And now Wave 5 has more aircraft to battle. So it builds on that classic arcade tradition, which I think, was a fair thing to do in those days. So yeah, so by comparison, I'm much enjoying this over the first game. If you didn't see the video for that, I will actually include that in the description below, just so you can watch and do your own compare. But this is a game I'm definitely enjoying a lot more. It's funny, I haven't played this since back on my original machine back in the day, and during those days I was completely terrible at it. I mean, the first time I ever saw that extra life message was today, as I'm recording this. Well, there we go. That's game over. So yeah, overall, I have to admit, I'm actually really liking Falcon Patrol 2 over the original game. I would say definitely to check this out. If you are a fan of that simplistic arcade style gameplay, this is probably the game you want to check out rather than the original. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to bringing you another game shortly.